That's not fair.
Hey friends, you're watching BrainStormAcres. I'm Henry.
And I'm Irene.
And she has Isa in her lap.
Henry thought that was funny. Do you think that's funny?
You know, we live off-grid on 43 acres in the high desert of northern Arizona. We're about 60 miles south of the Grand Canyon.
Yeah, I think it might actually be 70, but yeah, about that.
So you know what we're going to talk about today?
Are we going to talk about what we said we would talk about, or are you going to change the topic?
I'm going to change the topic. You don't know what it's going to be.
Yeah, because it's got to do with that box the cat wanted to get into, I'll bet.
It does. Okay, you ready?
Yeah.
Now, I've been looking for some stuff for a number of years, and I finally found it, and Irene doesn't know about it. Anyway, I've been looking for a bunch of stuff for a number of years, and I finally found some. And it's really ironic because there were some comments in a recent show about things. So, close your eyes. This is kind of an early Christmas present. Hold your hands out. And don't bite me, cat. Now you can look.
Oh, cool.
What is it?
It's a little building. It's a drugstore.
And I think it's the size that will go with our existing set.
If not, it'll simply be in the auxiliary village over there. Cool. Oh, neat. See, that's a little church.
I'm going to make room so Isa can get in the box.
Yeah, right. That's important. Cool.
What is it?
County courthouse. Yeah, I suspect that these are a different scale, but they're all the same scale, so we'll just have an auxiliary village. See, this was a drugstore. Oh, Heilig Myers. Yeah.
We'll have to see if this one survived. The box got crushed a bit.
Pushed a little bit. They usually have like some pretty good packing in them. I know in a barber shop. Cool.
But wait, there's more.
Uh-oh. I'm running out of arms. I don't want to drop anything. Let's see. Oh, a coffee shop. Ah.
You're going to get down.
She says, "You're a meanie."
You need one more hand.
I do. Maybe two. Oh, cool. The accessories. Neat. Trees and a gazebo and people chatting. Mailman.
Lots of stuff.
Lots of stuff. Very cool. Oh, the battery-operated blinking Christmas tree. Cool. This did not come with a battery-operated blinking Christmas tree. I made one. Mine doesn't blink, though. Very cool. Eek. We're going to have some urban renewal here. I'm going to put this.
Exactly.
Thank you very much. She's starting to feel bitey, I can tell.
Now, the other topic we're going to talk about today is some more about yesterday's show on getting building permits.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one of the interesting problems that I ran into with finding out what kind of permit we required was that in the past 14 years, the last permit I got was 14 years ago, the counties changed their terms. So I used to get a building placement permit.
Mm-hmm.
Now I get a zoning clearance permit.
Right.
But there's nowhere that says that. So you have to go through a ton and ton and ton and several tons of stuff before you find out what you actually need.
Yeah, well, Henry and I were talking about this yesterday a little bit, the fact that no matter what you're doing, whether you're doing something with the government or, you know, a research project or anything else, figuring out what the terms are that you need to search for can be an absolute nightmare sometimes. I mean, I often research in European online museums and stuff. I know what it's called in the United States. It may not be called the same thing in Europe. Academicians may call it something different than your average guy on the street calls it. And I have some of those terms, but then you have to go find the stuff and you're like, oh my goodness, you know.
So part of the job is to figure out what the right terms are to use. Now, in the case of the county that we're in, they've changed the terms. They've adopted a bunch of new building codes and electrical codes. That's all fine, but it would be really nice if they had a glossary of terms that was consolidated. They don't consolidate anything.
No.
There are engineering firms that will handhold you through the permitting process in our county. They charge good money to do it, but they save time, they save hassles, and they might save some mistakes.
Well, to be blunt, the educational level in our county is not particularly high.
Well, none of the counties are high.
But you'll have nexus areas. You'll have Flagstaff's got a university, Prescott's got a little bit higher education than where we are. You know, Maricopa County, because it's got Phoenix and it's got high-tech companies and everything else, has got a little bit higher. But if it's a challenge, you know, I mean, if you've ever read IRS papers, trying to figure that out, this stuff's worse than that.
Yeah, I have a reasonable education. I was a practicing engineer for a number of years, managed a whole stack of engineers for many, many years. I'm pretty good at reading things. I'm pretty good at reading obtuse language and convoluted language. It just took a boatload of time. Now, yesterday's show was a whole whopping 10 minutes in length. 10 minutes. Yeah, I cut a few things out because it was a little bit long, but I spent 4 hours in the morning trying to find where the portal was to do the online submission. And it was nowhere to be found. And I called the customer service people in the county and I said, okay, I give up. Where do I find the portal? And they said, well, here's how you find it. Well, I tried it once and the search term didn't find the piece that I needed to get to. The second time, it gave me a whole stack of references to various things. One of them, one, had some instructions about how to go about applying for an online building permit. Now, mind you, we don't need a building permit. We need a zoning clearance permit.
But see, to me, zoning clearance means I want to change something about the zoning of my property. Well, we're not changing the zoning of our property. It's already zoned residential. All we need to do is say, right here, we want to put this. And that's all we need to tell the county, because all they care is how big is it, does it have any utilities going to it, and how close is it to your property line?
Yeah, there's a whole ton of conditions that you have to meet for all these different kind of permits. Now, one of the things that we do have here is if you have a building that's less than 200 square feet, that's one set of rules. A building that's less than 400 square feet is a slightly different set of rules. Anything over 400 square feet or anything that has an average roof height greater than 12 feet requires a building permit. So that means you go through doing all the engineering drawings, you have to submit engineering plans, it has to be reviewed by the county, and they say yes or no.
And I think the height here without a variance is 30 feet?
34 feet.
34 feet, okay.
So you can actually build something that the highest part of your building is at 34 feet. I'm not interested in that. I don't particularly like those kind of heights anymore.
Which means I'd be on the roof, and that doesn't sound like fun.
I put this roof on this house. The peak of this roof is at 14 feet. It was not fun. The roof was very, very slick. Every time we get some dust on it, you'd go ice skating, which meant that every morning you had to be very careful because
There's always dust here. It's Arizona.
you might head for the ground in a hurry. And since it's 10 feet from our eaves to the ground, plus a little bit, depending on which side of the house you're on, it could be a real exciting time. It's a little bit frustrating trying to sort through all these kinds of issues with any county. It isn't necessarily easy. They're really aiming to deal with professional contractors and professional builders. Those people know all the terms that apply to the job that they're doing, mostly.
Mostly.
There are still people who get in trouble because they don't apply for the right permit. They don't submit a complete package. Now, not submitting a complete package means that it's going to be rejected. In our case, that means we have to have a site plan. We have to have the distance to the borders of our property and to the other buildings on our property. It's a bit of work because we have 43 acres. And it all has to fit on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper.
Right, so the scale is really teeny tiny.
Well, the way you get around that is you do the scale in the area where you're developing at a reasonable scale and then give distance to the property lines. The problem, though, is there are a lot of different standards about how you draw these kinds of maps. And which one is the county going to be happy with? I don't know. I know what I've supplied in the past, and they've been perfectly happy to accept that. But in the past 14 years, they've changed their minds.
I'm thinking that what we'll probably do is I'll do an architectural drawing with pen and paper, and then we'll copy it and make it look like a printed out plan. Either that, or I can use one of the graphics programs.
Well, we have to scan it anyway, so
Right.
it's not going to be a pen and ink quality drawing. So we'll do that, whether it's done by Irene with a drawing program, whether I just use a magic marker and copy over one of the plans I already have. We'll figure that out. But there is one thing that is true for our county and pretty much everywhere that I know of, and that is if you do not submit a complete package at one time, it's going to get rejected. Everything's going to get rejected. They're not going to spend 1 minute looking at anything.
And they may not even, they may take a long time to get back to you. That's the worst part. You could be sitting there on your thumb thinking everything's in process and you're going to get a yes any minute now. And then you don't hear and you don't hear, and then you eventually contact them and they say, "Oh, we threw that in the trash because you were missing this thing."
Well, they don't throw it in the trash, but they don't act on it, which
Yeah.
is the real issue. Now, since this is all electronic now, in the old days, I actually had to take
A piece of paper.
handwritten drawings in and have them say yes or no. And in those days, you could do what's called an over-the-counter submission, and I could go talk to the planning person in person. I could talk to the grading people in person. I could talk to all those people in person. And they could say, "That's almost right. We just need this other piece of information on here," and I'd put it on, and they'd be happy. Now, I submit it into the black hole of Calcutta, and they may or may not like it. They may or may not accept it. And the problem is they may not tell me they accepted or rejected it. It takes the amount of
It's
time.
getting the feedback that you need to know what the heck's wrong. You know, I don't know how hard that'll be. Hopefully we'll just get it right the first time.
Well, right the first time, wrong the first time, it's going to be whatever we turn in. I'm hopeful that we'll get through it the first time without having to go make changes. Every time I resubmit, there's a $35 fee, which is non-refundable, by the way. So if they reject the entire plan, it's $35 that's down the drain. So one of the reasons why I want to be as careful as I can be about getting the submission package right, that is acceptable to the people who are reviewing it, See, I don't want to keep on paying $35 for every submission because
Yeah.
you can spend a lot of time and a lot of money doing that. Well, it's only $35.
Yeah, but $35 plus $35 plus $35, that's $100 almost.
It's over $100.
Yeah, and that's like more than dinner at a really good restaurant.
Well, a so-so restaurant anyway.
Around here. It'd be a really good restaurant.
Well, I hope that sheds a little light on this permitting process that I started showing you yesterday. There's a lot more I have to do before I can submit the plans. I'm going to go through all of those documents very carefully to make sure that every T is crossed, every I is dotted, and everything is done to their specifications. Even doing that, it's not guaranteed that they're going to accept the drawing. They may not like the thickness of a line. They may not like the printing that's on the paper. I don't know. It depends on who is going to be going through this process at the county. It was cold this morning.
It's been really cold lately. It's most mornings it's been around 12 degrees Fahrenheit in the morning. So I think it was a smidge warmer than that this morning. I think it might have been 18.
Not when I went down to work with Rick on,
okay.
on getting that trailer.
Right. But it was just and there's been it's not just the temperature, it's the wind. When you got a little bit of a breeze, all of a sudden you feel like you're sitting out there in your skivvies. So yeah, it's been chilly. It's been very easy to get Kat in. She'll decide she wants to go out, but she can't stay out for too long because her little feeties are freezing. And she doesn't really care for snow either. So she tries to find some place where there's no snow.
Now, I have a lot of projects to get done here on the homestead. I got one thing done today. I got the windshield washers on one of our cars working. It wasn't a big deal. I could have done the whole job myself. I happened to stop at a mechanic's place that I'm friends with. And he said, well, let's check it real quick. And he said, no, the pump's dead. He said, I just happen to have a donor car out in my lot.
Right. So we have a new used pump.
But there's a lot of things like that that have to get done. I have to replace a blower motor in that same car. I have to replace a heater and cooling control unit in the Range Rover.
And we've done that before. That is a bear.
It's 11 hours of disassembly and 12 hours of reassembly.
Yeah, I mean, it's like 9,000 screws and nuts and bolts and uncomfortable locations to cram yourself into, and yeah.
And we've done this before.
Yes, we have.
But, you know, we live not in the middle of nowhere, but we live pretty far out, and there's not many people who work on that kind of a car.
No, and we've had bad luck in the past taking them to foreign car shops up in Flagstaff. Now, the ironic thing is, there's a Jag dealership up in Flagstaff. And I don't see many Jags up there, but I do see quite a few Range Rovers because of the weather. I mean, it's a snowy city. It's actually, did you know that Flagstaff is considered to be one of the snowiest cities in the United States?
Well, about 12 or 13 years ago, it was sure snowy. We had a blizzard every week for a number of weeks.
Seemed like forever.
There was no place for snow to be put.
Yeah, they were having a hard time. You know, where do you put it? And it's polluted once you've taken it off the roads because it's got salt in it. So you can't just throw it anywhere because you'll be polluting some lake or some pond or a river or something. So
I have other things to get taken care of here on the homestead. I have a front end loader that I need to get put back together. I paid somebody else to fix a head gasket on it a number of years ago. They didn't reassemble it. And I've been finding pieces.
Magically.
I've been finding pieces here, there, and the other place.
Yeah.
So I think I have most everything together near that front end loader, so I should be able to put it back together. Fortunately, I have another unit on the other side of the house that will give me a guide as to how things go back together.
And we actually do have some of the original manuals for that.
So I have that to do, and I have to replace the controller for our remote gate entry for the property because the controller that's in it died a number of years ago. I have the replacement part. I just haven't had the time. It's about an 8 to 10 hour job
And it's
to do this.
It's a low priority. I mean, you know, I could open a gate.
and we have been. If you're going to live off grid in a more rural area, there are people that we watch on YouTube that we've watched for many years who decided to build a new homestead on raw land. And he said this morning, when you live off grid, you have to be prepared to repair it yourself, because you're not going to get people to come repair it. Except if you have heavy equipment and you live in the right area, you can get heavy equipment mechanics to come out and work on it, because that's what they do. Well, it's time to say goodbye, Irene.
Yes, it is. We both have to get back to work. So,
We are working right now. What do you mean get back to work?
doing other things. So be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell, because obviously we're going to be doing lots. Until next time, bye.
Bye. Keep brainstorming.
Yeah, obviously we do.
And sometimes we fool somebody.